Aw, heck. How's it going, Twitch? Keep forgetting which webcam I need to look into. It's that one right there. I am off center. That's going to bother me. Whip. Whip. There it is. Good job, me. Cool. Thanks for being here on launch day. I was the other day thinking about how I'm looking forward to not having to send out press releases like every single day, but I'm probably gonna have to keep doing that. That's what they don't tell you, is that you get like a 1% response rate, and of that 1%, maybe half of them are in any way constructive. Spotify wants to update. I don't know if I want to let it. Whatever. Let's do some housekeeping type things. I don't use Discord. I don't know how it works. I have very little inclination to find out. That said, a Discord channel was requested, so there is a Discord channel. It's in the chat now. I don't know why I'm pointing over there, because you can't see what I can see. It's in the chat. Just find it. And then inside of Discord there is a general chat, a music specific chat, and a questions chat. So obviously general is if you want to talk about anything, that's fine, go ahead. Music specific is if you want to talk about the music, or any music in fact, that's fine. And then questions is if you want to ask me a question that I respond to on the stream. Alternatively, if you want to ask me a question, you can ask me a question on the stream, the Twitch stream chat. You can also ask it in the digital launch party event page, or just probably post it on the Blue Alatar Facebook wall. If you don't know what that is, I don't know why you're here. Or you could tweet me at LT Guitarist. That is spelt LT Guitarist, and it looks like this. You can just tweet me. Yeah. Is that all the housekeeping? No, it's not. Volume levels. Because I'm using a music setup rather than a gamer setup, my volume isn't always perfect, but it is really easy to change. So if you want the music louder, tell me you want the music louder. If you want me louder or me quieter, tell me you want that, and I can do that. If you want me to boost it at if you want me to boost the mids, I can do that. I can go entirely mids if you want. That's what this would sound like. Or I could boost the bass. Ooh, that's quite nice actually. Maybe not all the way. There's a lot of noise in the bass. I'm going to get so easily distracted, by the way, so get on board. Yeah, I think that's everything. So the way this is going to work is we're going to stream for maybe up to 2 hours. We'll see. If obviously we all get bored, then I won't. I'm going to play through the entire album on... I haven't actually explained what we're here for. I'll get to that. I'm going to play through the entire album on Spotify, and then maybe talk a little bit in between each song about that particular song. Again, if you want to know more, tell me you want more. If you want less, tell me you want less. It's all good. And then I thought what might be fun is to, having played through it all on Spotify, go through it in Cubase and look at the actual project files, which are hench, but I did manage to load them. So if you want to look at that, I'm going to go through and just talk about some of the hidden stuff, some of the sound effects, some of the more nitty-gritty music type things, which may or may not be of interest to you, but that's what's happening. Cool. If you don't know why we're here, and the title of the stream hasn't given it away, I put out an album. It took me 8 bloody years to put out an album, but I did it. and now we're here, and now I'm making you all sit through it at least twice. The album is a blend of classic and modern rock, instrumental, classic and modern rock, cinematic score, like Ramin Djawadi, who does the Game of Thrones soundtrack, amongst other things. I like Hans Zimmer, I like Bear McCreary, little bits of world music, world folk, and psychedelic, like Osric Tentacles were a massive influence, especially earlier on. Yeah, and weird noises. There's a few weird noises hidden in there as well, which is fun. So yeah, I guess let's begin by finding me. There I am. Cool. Oh, I should tell you where the album is. I'm really good at this. I have a script and everything, but I forgot to put stuff on the script. The album is available now. Excuse me. If you want it for free, which is fine, you can go to bandcamp.bluealatar.com. You can have all of the tracks, including the bonus remix track by Theo Sayers, which is kick-ass. You can just have it. I don't care. Well, I do care, but you can just have it. It's a name your price album, so if you want to give me 50 quid, you can absolutely give me 50 quid. If you want to give me a more realistic £4 or £5, that is also fine. If you just want it for free, that's fine. If you can only afford 50p, that's fine. Do not care. I mean, I want money, but generally I want people to listen to this more than I objectively want money. Objectively want money? I don't know. Bandcamp. It is also on Spotify, as you're about to find out. It is also on reverbnation.com/Blue Alatar. It's not yet on SoundCloud because I've run out of space on SoundCloud. I think it's on Deezer, Apple Music, or iTunes, whichever they're using. Google Music. I think I said Deezer. I think it's on Napster. I didn't realise Napster was still a thing. You know what? I'm talking too much. It's fine. But yeah, if you want it, this is the place that you would ideally go. I can't promise that any other website won't try to charge you dumb amounts of money. Sorry, I'm just harassing people now. I'll try to keep my harassment to when the music's actually playing. So, how do I find the album? There it is. And if you want to find the Inspiration Blue Alatar playlist, that comes up when you find Blue Alatar, I hope. Yeah, there you are. If you want to listen to the inspiration behind, there's a whole bunch of crap here. A whole bunch of crap. Super respectful of me. Whitesnake, Osric Tentacles, People Fairies, Hans Zimmer, Jeff Beck, Blackstone Cherry, Thin Lizzy, Osric Tentacles, Tony Iommi, Steve Vai, Delayin, apparently. Oh yeah, no, that's a jam, in fairness. Prodigy, Gary Moore, Victory Pill. Pete Bog Fairies are awesome. I keep getting distracted. It's really good. So, track number 1 is a short one. Not the shortest on the album, but it is quite short. Craig from the UK just downloaded it from Apple Music. Thanks, Craig from the UK. I wonder where you're from, Craig. Nice one, buddy. Before you've even heard it. I like that a lot. Prologue is the oldest track on the album. I said that the whole thing took me about 8 years. This one was written 8 or 9 years ago, and it was written for I think it was a film or a game or a web series that never happened, which is like 80% of the music I write. I met a guy on a forum, because that's how all good stories start. I met a dude on a Marble Hornets forum, the Marble Hornets forum. That was another web series, and I think in my forum signature or my bio or whatever, it said composer based in UK, and it's, I'm a filmmaker based in UK, or a game designer. I don't remember. It was nearly a decade ago. And he wanted a piece of music writing for like his, opening sequence in the movie or game. So I wrote what would turn out to be this prologue track. That's why it's called Prologue. So it was always going to be an intro piece, and like the original version was almost entirely orchestral, and I really liked it. And obviously the project didn't happen. Aeroplane. That's going to get annoying, but there are aeroplanes here as well. The project never happened, but I really liked the piece of music, so I thought, well, why not use it as an opening track for this album? And I decided to do that when I decided to properly do the album, just after this project got binned. Was that a coherent sentence? I don't know. Craig from the UK, no worries, bud. Well, yeah, might need a refund. Don't get a refund. Come on. Play nice. So it was originally a classical track, and I really liked the chords, the melody, the rhythm. I liked all of it, but the arrangement didn't quite fit with this whole thing. And the majority of work I put into this whole album wasn't even about writing the album. It wasn't even about playing the parts. It was about making it sound like one coherent thing. So what I basically did was I deleted all the instruments. I kept basically a really raw MIDI track, and then I built it from the ground up using instruments that were in here. So rather than having orchestral percussion, there's a little bit, but it has a drum kit. Guitars are more obvious, and it's got like, as you'll hear, there's some weird instrument choices. So there's like oud, which is a stringed Middle Eastern instrument. There's, I don't know how to describe it. It's like it sounds similar to like a plucked instrument, but it's got the main attack of the instrument is plucked piano strings. That's really fun, and I basically just created an instrument for that, which I don't think is in any way playable. It sounds kind of like a dulcimer, but like a super ambient dulcimer. Yeah, so that comes in quite a lot in the rest of the album. So I basically remade or rearranged the track using instruments that were in the rest of it. So I'm going to turn my mic off and listen to some music. Put my crown on. Fine, I'll put my crown on. Track number 1. This really hurts, by the way. I can't. I've got no blood going to my brain. So I'll keep it there, so it's in everyone's way. Is that visible? No, it's not even visible. Hang on. Oh. That is... okay, the crown is visible. Come on. I'll meet you halfway. That was track number 1. See if you can spot the recurring theme, the leitmotif that goes throughout the entire album. I think I've said everything I need to say about that. Yeah. I think those are all the words I have for that track. Let's go on to the next one. Genius of Mechanicals. Okay, so I gave the whole album this super dumb low fantasy narrative. The reason being that I really like instrumental music. That's like my main thing. I don't dislike lyrics. I'm just better without lyrics, I find. And in order to have some kind of structure to the album, and also to have some sort of theme around which to name tracks, I created this really weak story about a giant robotic panda of the artwork. So, the whole thing is basically about a kind of steampunky... what's the opposite of utopia again? That. Like the steampunky world. And there's a bunch of like miners and slaves and like people who are being mistreated, and they basically have this massive uprising. And there's an engineer who is also pictured in the album artwork. Mechanicals, hard to say. She basically builds a giant robot panda to overthrow the ruling caste thingamy. So, Genius of Mechanicals is all about, hey, what a cracking idea! Rebelling. Ooh, smart. So that's what this song is. Mechanicals, she's had an idea. Good. I like this track. It was, again, I think, written relatively early. Yeah, that was quite early, so maybe 6 years ago. And there were some early demos of the track floating around the internet. But this is the version we've finished with. Really big guitar riff, more traditionally rock, I guess, but still loads of synth, still loads of weird stuff. Dystopia. Thank you, Craig from the UK. There is a bit of a delay between what I'm saying and what you're typing, but thanks. Dystopia, that's the one. You probably all worked that out. Big riff, which I think I had intended to rip off a Whitesnake song, like one of the not very well known super recent Whitesnake songs. I say super recent, it's probably 10 years old by now. Can't even remember which one. But luckily for copyright enthusiasts, it doesn't actually sound that much like the song. Yeah. Genius of Mechanicals. I'm going to turn my mic off again. Track number 2 there. I do want to share something from that, because I have no idea what it is. There's something that really sounds like a burp in there. At 4 minutes 28 seconds, it really sounds like a burp. And I have no idea what it is, but like it probably doesn't even stand out, but I happen to have heard it once listening back to it, and now it's all I can hear at the end there. And I remember listening to it, one of the early mixes, and being like, that's really weird. And then going through the tracks in the Cubase project and just trying to find it, and I don't know what makes that noise. It's so weird. But messages. Yeah, I don't know what's causing that. I tried going through and muting things, and I think it might be this weird combination of 2 tracks, so nothing individually was making that sound. So it must be like a combination of 2 or 3 elements. I don't know, it's so weird. I kind of love it. So weird. Track number 3, Rise of Pandapopolis. Pandapopolis is the giant robot panda that Mechanically is built, and this is a continuation of this track because there's a narrative, and this is basically the whole world or the whole city or whatever going, oh crap, there's a giant panda, and his aeroplane, and him basically being massive and scary. Rise of Pandapopolis. This was also one of the earlier tracks, along with Genius of Mechanicles and Raid the Nuke Lab and Fall of Pandapopolis, when I basically realised I'm going to do an album. And then 8 years later I finished it. So this is an early track. There were early versions of this online. Guitars have changed. The guitar solo has not, because I don't know how I did that. I think I used to play, back when I recorded the original version and this guitar solo, I think I only played guitar, so my guitar playing was pretty good. But right now I'm playing like a million instruments and writing music, and like playing guitar isn't my main focus, so I can't do the guitar solo that is on this track, which is a bummer. Maybe like I should dedicate some time to doing that, but then I don't see Blue Alatar touring anytime soon. Yeah, so that's fun. I was such an idiot. I think I recorded the guitar solo ever so slightly out of tune, because I'm an idiot, so I had to repitch it ever so slightly, and Sai helped me do that. Sai, who co-wrote Heck and was actually a really helpful resource for like making sure I wasn't writing crap. Yeah, he helped me repitch it because it's got perfect pitch, because he's what's the opposite of cursed? Blessed? No, that sounds lame. He's got perfect pitch. It's helpful. Yeah, Rise of Pandapopolis. Gamba Toro, great to see this, mate. Make sure you archive this. This is going to be archived on YouTube. I do streams every Monday, which are music theory or Cubase production based. Those streams all get archived onto YouTube. So if you want to find Liam Taylor guitar on YouTube, there's actually, if you scroll down ever so slightly, there is a YouTube button below where I am. If you subscribe to that YouTube channel, this will be archived. Although you're watching it now. Police. Rise of Pandapopolis. Enjoy. I know my mic was off. I was just saying is good because there's there's a couple of notes in that solo that just sort of, I don't know, just sound especially tasty. Hooray for root notes. And that was also single number 1. So that's been available for download for, I don't know, a couple of months, 3 months. I had this whole massive promotion timeline worked out, and I can't remember anything prior to this last week. It's been fun. Yeah, so that's been out a while, and now He's a Big 'Un Though, which is how you say that. He's a Big 'Un Though. Single number 2, track number 4. I did feel a bit weird about having these 2 singles next to each other, but whatever. Single number 2, I wasn't sure about actually having track 10, A New Cast. Can you even see that under my face? You can just about see that. Track 10, A New Cast. There you go. That was originally going to be the second single. The reason I went with He's a Big 'Un Though is because I wanted to have the second single remixed, and I had a specific artist in mind, Theo Sayers. Big up Theo. And I think I basically gave him the option of like 2 or 3 tracks, and pretty much whichever one he wanted to remix was going to be single number 2, and he wanted to do that one, which I was fine with. So that's how come that is that. Good sentence, good words. So in terms of narrative, this is when people realize, hey, that giant panda that just saved us, he's a bit angry, and he starts wrecking up the place, and everyone's like, oh, we temporary freedom, and now there's a giant panda in charge. We really screwed up. So they've gone from one weird ruling caste of overlords to one giant panda who doesn't really know what he's doing, because he was built for the sole purpose of overthrowing the government as was, and now he's in charge. He's a Big 'Un Though. It's big, it's riffy, it has a really fun Far Eastern sounding plucked melody instrument, kind of like a gazeng or a plucked dulcimer. I can't remember what instrument I actually used. Probably was a gazeng. It's a nice big riff in F sharp minor, obviously, and it sounds a little bit Metallica-y, which ordinarily I'd be like, Metallica. But yeah, this sounds like kind of mid-career Metallica, which I can sort of get behind. And it also has a hook, which I was told sounds a little bit too much like the hook in I Shot the Sheriff, but I think because there's a melody and a counter melody, I think that's enough to get away with it not being a copyright issue. Ugh. Unless, of course, I point that out publicly on, say, a live stream. Yeah. It's a cool one. There's a nice sort of dynamic dip, a slow section with a nice sort of Jeff Beck-esque guitar solo. I think I actually went fingerstyle for that solo, which is why it sounds a little more mellow. Yeah, I think that's everything I have to say about that. Oh, I should probably mention the vocal sound design. There's some nice sort of guttural growls and stuff. My friend Tom Winter, who is an occasional metal vocalist. Occasional metal, it's like prog metal, but less often. So I basically recorded with him years and years ago, and I resurrected some of the old samples and turned it into the voice of Pandapopolis. When I get around to printing albums, I don't know if I'll credit him as the voice of Pandapopolis. I don't know if he'd like that. Yeah, track 4, single number 2, He's a Big 'Un Though. And you got to say it like that as well, otherwise it doesn't count. I think I've said everything I need to say about that one. How's my voice? 1, 2. Yeah, that's probably fine. We need a new plan. Shortest track on the whole thing. This is the point where the rebels are like, oh bugger, the panda's taken over. And now we need a new plan. Previous plan didn't work. Installed a giant panda in power. Now we need a new plan. So I think this was like probably the last or one of the very late additions to the album. I wanted something that was more ambient, less aggressive, because it's between, I would say, possibly two of the most intense tracks on the whole thing, especially number 6. Number 6 is ridiculous. So I wanted something that was like a bit of a break from that, dynamically. So yeah, this one's quite simple. I think there's a tempura drone, very simple drums, and the whole thing that's being played on guitar and oud, I think. The whole pattern is the album's leitmotif, aeroplane, which in my mind sort of represents the city within which the story takes place. I really hate aeroplanes. Yeah, so anytime you hear that pattern, which you're about to hear on repeat for just over a minute, that represents the city, or the citizens, the peasantry within the city. I think it's the only leitmotif. I think I used individual instruments as kind of motifs as well. So obviously the metal growling sound effects represent Pandapopolis. I think as does any level of glitch, I guess. Yeah, I think that's all I need to say. We need a new plan. Keep fading. Yeah. Yeah, we need a new plan. I like that one. Very simple, but it's as you're about to hear, it's a nice break dynamically from two quite intense tracks. Raid the Nuke Lab. This was one that was written, I think, Fall of Pandapopolis, Raid the Nuke Lab, Rise of Pandapopolis, and Genius of Mechanicles. That's really hard to say fast. Were like the 4 tracks that I wrote pretty early on, so maybe 6-7 years ago. This one has been through probably the most drastic changes, because I started off wanting to do a drum and bass track and then realised that I don't listen to enough drum and bass. So now it's kind of at a nice place in between big crunchy rock, kind of Prodigy-esque maybe. Again, I don't like. There's lots of like big EDM, not quite as dumb as dubstep, but like lots of big synths, lots of noises and abrasive basses. I think there's like 4 or 5 bass layers, which we'll see when we go look at Cubase. How am I doing for time, by the way? Wow, okay. I might need to speed this up a bit. Well, I'm just going to assume that you're all here voluntarily and having a reasonably good time, so maybe not. If you want me to speed up and talk less, that's fine, just say so. Raid the Nuke Lab. In terms of the narrative, this is the new plan. There's a giant nuclear laboratory where our heroes, like characters, Mechanicals, the rebels, whatever, they're like, oh, let's go screw up Pandapopolis's rule by destroying the nuclear facility powering the entire city. It's steampunk, but it's nuclear powered steampunk. Nuke punk. That's not a thing. Kezudan, sounding good, Liam. Tar Kezudan. Raid the Nuke Lab. Yeah, this one's fun. But does the plan work? Only time will tell, or getting to the next track when I tell you what happened. Raid the Nuke Lab. That fade out sound effect is a piano being kicked in its theoretical junk. Raid the Nuke Lab. Yeah, there's a lot in there. I really like the structure of it, even though I'm not entirely sure what the structure is. Yeah, it sort of flows quite nicely into, I don't know what I call the different sections. But did the plan work? Oh, heck, no, it didn't. So, in terms of the narrative, there's... Oh, yeah, I didn't even name him. Just realised. It's taken me 8 years to realise I haven't given him a name. This little thing here that Mechanicles is holding is a hamster. A hamster called Gilbert. Gilbert did at one point have his own track. Let's find a picture of Gilbert. There you go. There's Gilbert. I had a design of Gilbert that I did myself years ago, and his nose looked like a penis. I tried to argue that it didn't at the time. I tried to say it looked like the Batman logo. It looked like a penis. So I had Gilbert redesigned by a fantastic artist called Loz Art Productions. That's not his surname, but that is something you can Google, Loz Art Productions. And he also did the album cover and a few other random art assets, including a nice version of Pandapopolis. Loz is a super talented artist and is also a well good musician. Anyone that came to Stab Panda gigs when they were good, like the really big gigs, were usually headlined by a band called Band of Brothers. Loz is and still is the singer and guitarist for Band of Brothers. He's based in France and he has a couple bands. Gadzooks, who I've written about on Stab Panda. They are really incredible, kind of contemporary soft rock, so sort of like Fleetwood Mac with a little more attitude. And he's in like a million other bands as well that I can't keep track of. So find Gadzooks, find Loz Art Productions, find Band of Brothers, Bob for short. They're all really cool. And I'm going to put a tick next to his name so I remember I've thanked him. Yeah. So, Gilbert. I remember where I was. I've gone so far off script. Gilbert is Mechanicles' hamster. And he's sort of, he's sentient, he's smart, he can't talk, but he's like a... what do you call it? Like a familiar. He's like Mechanicles' little buddy. And he was trying to help in the nuke lab, and he totally got dipped into some kind of radioactive something. I don't know how nuclear power works. So he got dropped in a vat of nuclear fission. And he's all obviously sick, which is a bit sad. So that's what Heck is about. Heck is when the rebels, having had a mostly unsuccessful raid on this nuke lab, they return home and they realise, oh yeah, because we shut the power down, everything's gone a bit to crap and there's looting and it's all a bit nasty, and they realise, we may have made a mistake. Heck was co-written by my good friend Sai, who I write a fair bit of music with, and he also was basically a great listening resource and soundboard for the whole album. Heck, he plays 12-string guitar and bass, so basically I think I had a really, really simple track and just got him to just jam some bass over the top, and then it was sort of cut up and kind of not glitched, but sort of resampled a bit, so it sounds a little bit janky on purpose. I really like this track. It's got some sort of Osric Tentacles sounding stuff, and I think it's got some chord voicings that I think sound very Psy. because his approach to music writing is very different to mine, so it was really cool to have him collaborate on this track. Heck. Fun name as well, Heck. It really sums up the situation for the narrative. Heck. Oops. Yeah, I like Heck. It's one of my favourite. Is it one of my favourite? It is one of my favourite. It's one of the more out of place tracks, I guess, but I really like it. That fade out sound effect is there's actually two bass instruments, and at the end, Psy's bass guitar is like the primary bass, and this other bass instrument that appeared at some point in the track is laid in there, but like all the bass frequencies are cut out, so that fade out at the end is like the bass frequencies being added back into the original bass instrument. Wrong track, Liam. Good job. Ruined everything. Yeah, I thought that was a fun little touch. Yeah, I've said everything I want to say. Baroque and Metropolis is... I don't know if I want to say it's one of the more straightforward rock tracks. It's more in the style of Genius of Mechanical Keys, whereas Pantopolis. I really struggled with this one, and I have no idea what made me decide to keep it. Narrative speaking, this is again the same as... I guess this is where they return home and they're like, oh no, we've really messed up. And this is just like, oh no, your hamster's got radiation poisoning or whatever. This is the point where like, poop, we've done something. But that kind of... The title track doesn't reflect what the track necessarily sounds like, so the track is very much a celebration. It's oh no, actually we can actually do this plan, we know what we're doing, it's all good, and so forth. So it's kind of a reflection on everything's broken at the moment, but actually we're not doing too bad. It's fun because I don't know, actually. I can't remember much about this track. Oh yeah, it has the sort of leitmotif at the start. Nice crunchy guitars. It's got a instrument, I think, which sounds a little bit like a Hammond organ. This one did have a Hammond organ in it, heck. Baroque and Metropolis has something that sounds like a Hammond organ. What it actually is I tuned an acoustic guitar so that all the strings were Bs, I think, except for one F sharp, which, oops. And then what I did was I took samples of that guitar being played and I put it into Contact and basically played it back. So this, what was a guitar that sounded a bit like a dulcimer, basically got screwed with, so it sounds like a Hammond organ. So if you hear something that sounds like a keyboard, it's a guitar. Yeah. Yeah. Enjoy. Baroque and Metropolis. There's actually quite a lot to talk about here. But I think because it's one of the more recent tracks, I think perhaps the last one I wrote, actually, so I've not been listening to it for like 6, 7, 8 years. Because since finishing the masters and the mixes, I basically haven't listened to this album. I didn't want to get completely sick of it, so I sort of stopped listening to it. Once I knew that, once I'd like pinned it down, I was like, these tracks are going out, this is it, this is the release, which happened back in May. Yeah. So the newer tracks subsequently, I can't actually remember that much about. There's an African djembe percussion ensemble in there, which you can only sort of hear at certain points, but I quite like. There's phrases in it that sound a little bit like the opening riff to Carry On My Wayward Son. Not enough to be a copyright issue, but they do sound a bit similar, or they do in my head. You can hear the leitmotif for the whole album. I think that's everything I have to say. Fall of Pandapopolis. Guess what happens in this one? So while everything's a bit crazy and things are breaking down around them, the rebels storm Pandapopolis's castle, fort, mansion, domicile. That's its full name. And they trap him. And that's actually what is depicted in the album artwork, the Fall of Pandapopolis. They realise that actually what they can do is they can take Gilbert, the irradiated hamster, which you should be alerted by, whatever, him. They're basically going to chuck it into Pandapopolis' mouth and hope that it like totally destroys him, and it does, and that's why it's called that. Fall of Pandapopolis. This is much to my embarrassment, the only track that isn't in 4/4. It's in either 7/8 or 7/4, I think. But it doesn't really feel like it's, or maybe it's just because I've played it so much. It doesn't really feel like it's in a weird time signature. It just feels like it flows quite nicely. Big riff. The opening sound effect was a pain in the bum, because an earlier version of this track, because I wrote this, like I said, the same time as tracks 2, 3, and 6, or same time, within 3 years. The opening sound effect was like a massive guitar bend. I think I detuned the guitar significantly and then just like properly had at it. And then it was just like a big cloud of like reverb and delay, and then it goes into like the big riff. And I actually remember that, if I've worked out your names, FS11ST and Kzudan, I think they were in the room. They were sat like there and there when I recorded that first sample, which is nice. Making it relatable and personable. They thought it was cool, so I kept it. And then coming to recreate the track this year, or rearrange, mix and so forth, re-record bits earlier this year, I think that original track was corrupted or something, so I couldn't access that original sample. So what I did was I took like the shoddy MP3 version that was on Reverb Nation, and I just cut the intro, and I tried to like blot out as much of the intro percussion as I could. So so that original sample is in there, that original effect is in there, but it's layered with like 8 other guitars on top as well. So it was a bit like, it was a compromise. I couldn't use the sample in the way I wanted, but it is in there, which is cool. I'm going to play this, and then I'm going to go take a wicked slash, because I've been talking for over an hour and I've gone through like so many liquids. So I'm going to hit play and then disappear. But I'll be right back, I hope. Fall of Pandapopolis. So glad I built in that bathroom button. I should really have a little be right back sign. Thanks to Keizu Dan for following. That's cool. There was actually supposed to be like a little animated following button that pops up. I wasn't really paying attention at the time, so I don't know if it did. If anyone else wants to drop us a follow and see if the animation works, that would be just fine. There, I've entrapped you into following. Fall of Pandapopolis. Yeah, it has a fun little section in 4/4, which feels like it doesn't quite fit. The reason is, I think it... What do they do? It's something like the beats work out to 4 or 8 repeats of 7/8. So it's more like it's still within the 7 time signature, but it's phrased in 4s. Yes, I think. And I think that's also the only point in the album where there's a tempo shift, I think. There feels like there's one in Ease Big, though, but I don't actually think there is. Yeah, so it kind of speeds up and then ramps down again, which is quite fun. Anything else to say? Big pinch harmonics in Fall of Pandapopolis. I like that a lot. Does it have a guitar solo? It doesn't have a guitar solo. That was the other thing. I felt like in a weird way that guitar solos maybe represented Pandapopolis, because there's not a guitar solo in A New Cast either. I don't know. I just thought that was interesting that like the penultimate and final track, no guitar solos. I mean, there's not one in Heck either. Yeah, like the most recent tracks I've written aren't. They've got nice riffs, but they don't really have the lead guitar in that way. So final track, which is somewhat hidden behind my face, is a new cast. So the Rebels are installing a new cast of leaders, possibly featuring Mechanicals. I wasn't specific in that regard. Gilbert survives, by the way, being shoved into Pandapopolis's face. That was somehow not fatal, nor was being given radiation poisoning. The final track, I had written one called Brave Gilbert years ago. I just didn't really feel like it fit. It felt like, I don't know if you're familiar with Joe Satriani, like the kind of the party tracks he's written in like a really sort of upbeat, friendly mode. Yeah, it sort of felt like one of those, but like a really half-assed attempt. So I was like, if I'm not going to do it properly, let's not bother. Yeah. So in the end, I went with a new cast. So I think this and Broken Metropolis were the final editions. A new cast was going to be the first or second single, but Sai was adamant that it should be that or Broken Metropolis, I think. The reason I didn't want it to be the single is because I felt like it was a really nice a nice final track, like a really cool ending to something that's taken me nearly a chuffing decade to complete. It's possibly my favourite track, and I felt like if it was the single, I kind of it'd be a bit of an, like, nothing on the album could live up to it if it's the best thing, and if I release that months early, everything else is going to be like by comparison. But then, hey, maybe it's not your favourite track, whatever. A new cast is interesting. The central melody sort of hops between two scales that aren't related. I can't remember what they are, but it doesn't sound like it does. It just sounds like it flows, and it's quite nice. There's a Hocket section, which is where instruments swap between... so different instruments basically take like a couple notes of the melody. You'll hear it. It's the bit that's like halfway through and sounds weird and choppy. And then there's a dumb electro breakdown. Yeah, let's play some music. A new cast, final track. Yeah. Cool track. I like it. So this is the bit where we go and talk about the details of the tracks. So it could get a bit music specific. If you do happen to leave us this point, I mean, please don't. But if you do, let me just rattle off my list of thanks first. Firstly, Theo Sayers, who did a kick-ass remix. We should probably listen to the remix, actually, before we get into anything else. So the remix isn't on Spotify. The remix is on Theo Sayers. Theo's. It's on Theo's SoundCloud. Theo Sayers. Blue Alatar, he's a big no Theo Sayers remix. And if you get it off of Bandcamp, it's part of that bundle. So let's have a listen to the remix, which I really like. It's a complete opposite end of the musical spectrum, but I found it really fun. See if you can spot the elements of my track, if it loads. I like it a lot. A lot. Yeah, I was super chuffed with that remix. Not least because it is so different to the rest of the album. And I feel like genre-wise, in terms of genre, I've covered a fair bit of ground with the album. But like this slightly more straightforward electro, I thought was, yeah, I really like it. Cool. List of thanks. That was it. Thanks to Theo for the remix. That was really epic. I hope I send more to you at some point. Good job. Thanks to Sai for helping with the entire thing, especially on Heck. Listening back to it, it really feels like all of the live instruments, I think, were all played by Sai, including the keyboard parts, bass, guitar, and the electric 12-string. There were other guitar parts that I put in, but I just didn't like them by the end of it. It was nearly 2 or 3 times the length when we first wrote it, and there was just not a lot of variation between the sections, so I cut out the things that were just straight repeats, and that's left us with this. So really, my role in this one was producer. I think I did the drums, what do you call it? Production, sequencing, arranging. I wrote the drum part, whatever. And then like the effects patches and stuff. So yeah, it's pretty much a 50-50 split between myself and Sai. I like that one a lot. And he's just generally a good musical sounding board. So anytime I wasn't really sure about something, it was great to sort of throw it at him and have him go, nah, it's terrible. That's why it sounds weird. I'd like to thank Dave Mitchell-Jones. Dave is a fantastic music educator and a particularly fantastic bass player. He plays bass in like a lot of Cambridge jazz funk bands. I became aware of him playing in a band called The Third Eyebrow of the Wretched Poisson, who are like, well, no longer active, but they were like a really great jazz fusion band in Cambridge. And yeah, Dave got a pretty good relationship with, and he was generous enough to give me some really solid mix advice. That's like one of the many things that he does is audio tech. So he was a really great person to just sort of say, hey, if you boost this signal specifically, this frequency range specifically, you're going to have a much better sound. And he could literally hone in on specific frequencies I needed to combat or boost. So yeah, it sounds, I mean, it's not a perfect mix because I did it, but like it sounded not nearly as good as it does now before Dave's input. So thanks, Dave Mitchell-Jones. Loz, I've already mentioned, thanks for the artwork. I really love it. It really helps sell the aesthetic. And I would say to any other musicians, if you don't pay for any service, and I have paid for other services for this one, obviously, but if there's one thing you have to pay for, I would say it's an artist to make original art assets. Not just the cover, but like promo art assets, that kind of thing. That's pretty much a must for album promotion. Just pay an artist, just find one and pay them. Professor Elemental. His slide's probably going to come up in a second just above my head. Like there? Yeah. I've done a bit of work with Professor Elemental before, as well as being a massive fan of him for many years. He basically just provided me with this awesome quote that has been rotating, and like, as dumb as it sounds, like it's really handy from a promotional standpoint to just have a phrase by someone who is more well known than you are that you can band around and say, oh yeah, no, this guy likes it, so you probably will as well. Which, yeah, it sounds dumb, but that's actually massively helpful, and I've cashed in massively on that nice thing, what he said. I'd like to thank Dave Hammond. Dave hosts the Smelly Flower Pot show on Cambridge 105. he was really happy to play single number 1. I can't remember if I sent him single number 2. Probably didn't. Oh no, I did. So he was really helpful with his time and playing that track or 2 tracks. And through him, track 4, He's a Bigger Note, also appeared recently on a German Shepherd compilation album of Cambridge artists in aid of Mind, the mental health charity, which is cool, and I think it's been played in some spots internationally, which is really nifty. So thanks, Dave, for all of that. And lastly, I don't know who I spoke to, or I don't have that information on my person. Future Radio in Norwich, where I studied music, were really helpful as well. They played single number 1 and 2, I think. Yeah, they were just very helpful. They were one of the first places that gave me any airtime, so that was really really helpful. Cool. Those are all of my thanks. If you don't want to stick around for the nitty-gritty Cubase stuff, that's fine, but I urge you to stay around. If you are going to disappear and you've enjoyed what you've heard, you can get it from bluealatar.bandcamp.com. It's free. If you want, you can just have it, or you can pay what you want. Suggested donation is £700. Yeah. If you can afford 50p, that's fine. If you want to give me a £5, that's also fine. I would rather you had it, to be honest. There's also merch, as the rotating thing tells you. Good old Redbubble. There's loads of stuff you can get because it's Redbubble. Look at this handsome devil. Variety of t-shirts. What else we got? They've changed how they look, so I can't really... Oh, there we go. Okay. All sorts of t-shirts, mugs, duvet cover. Heck yes. Stickers, tote bags, journals, throw pillows, tapestries. And that's the same for the... Come on. Come on. There it is. That's the same for the Gilbert and the Pandapopolis, all of which designed by Loz Art Productions. Yeah, albums available. Spotify, obviously. Apple Music, Deezer, Google Music. I think that's everywhere. Cool. Right, let's take a look at Cubase. Dun, dun, dun. This is Cubase. This is where I make stupid noises for money. So this project folder, which you may be able to see, is called Mix 4, Compression Can Suck It. And I think this was the one where I was basically struggling to get the levels sounding nice and clear, but keep it at kind of a consistent volume throughout. So what we have here are the different instrument sections down the left. So orchestra is bounced out as a single file. There's like, I can't remember how many different parts to the orchestra there were, but they're all bounced down into a single one. So I just have the entire orchestra here. And if I want to tweak them, I basically got to go back to the previous project folder and arrange it there. So this is the orchestra, including piano apparently. That's a bit louder than Spotify. So orchestra, choir, shut up, choir, including some shouty sound effects. So that's separated into, I think, generic mixed choir, female choir, male choir, and then shouts. Drums, we have an electro kit. We have kit 1, a miscellaneous kit. I don't know what the difference is. Oh, okay, so there's a drum kit patch that I used for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the tracks had the same drum kit sound, so there's a nice consistent drum sound. So even though they're playing different tracks and different patterns, they all basically sound the same. So like the snare is tuned the same, the cymbals are in the same place spatially, all that kind of stuff. Ease Big and Though and Raid the Nuke Lab had their own kits because I wanted different sounds. So, oh, this one's got a load of glitch going on. If I can find it. Yeah, so that had to be in its own thing because I maybe lost the track where I was working on it before I glitched it. Oops. And then Raid the Nuke Lab has its own stupid electronic kit, again with glitch. And then 2 layers of percussion. I don't think there's any particular reason why they're split into 2 tracks. I think it's just that Rise of Pandapopolis had 2 separate percussion tracks for some reason. And I don't know what this one is. I think they're just bigger drums, so I wanted them separate. So that's one of the more typically cinematic things, which I don't think gets hidden in the rest of the track. I think it just adds like a really neat layer to it. So Rise of Pandapopolis, which I'll get to later, has a glitch drum track, an actual drum track, and then 2 percussion layers. Because that's how I roll. So percussion also includes... What's this? Oh, just big drums. Cool. Is this the... Oh, I don't know what this is. Oh, okay. So kind of like a djembe? Mixed percussion, whatever. And then the West African djembe ensemble. Which you cannot hear. Doesn't matter. I think, yeah, there's a nice layer, and when you can hear it, it really adds something special, I think, personally. Those are the drums. Basses, we have a bass guitar, which is MIDI. Well, this one's MIDI on 3 tracks. Earlier versions, I was playing a bass guitar, but I don't know, the only bass that I like is that the only bass that I enjoy playing that I own is a fretless bass, Dean something, and the fretless sound, as much as I like it, just wasn't quite right. So what we have here is a contact bass running through a pod bass amp. Have I broken it? Come on, buddy, you can do it. There we go. Running through pod farm bass cabinet. Yeah, sounds fine. And then we also have excuse me, miscellaneous bass, for example, Tampura. And then synth bass, like the one in Genius of Mechanicles, which is hefty as heck. And then Ease Big and Though, the bass is really fun. Raid the Nuke Lab has like so many bass layers. So it starts with that nice subby bass. And the typical wobble. this bit? Okay. Lots going on there. And what's this? Oh yeah, it ends with a really simple bass. Oh yeah, and I spoke about this earlier, the size live bass. Super ambient live bass. And then it swaps to and then they swap. So that turns into this really harsh top synth. And Psy's original bass is underneath. And then they swap back. Which I think is nifty as heck. Those are the basses. Oh yeah, the super abrasive bass in a new cast, which I really like. And there's another massive patch as well. Oh, okay, what's this? Okay. Apparently in Fall of Pantopolis I didn't have an audio track. Whatever. Those are the basses. Guitars. There's lots. Sometimes pairs of lead, as per Genius of Mechanicles. Sometimes harmonies. Sometimes several harmonies. Oh, and like there's a tiny bit of clean guitar. Just a little bit. Just for fun. Was there not clean guitar on... Oh yeah, there's a clean rhythm guitar on... Clean-ish on Heck. And we need a plan. Oh yeah, clean guitar as well. That's such a short track, you can't even really see it. This is exactly why I colour code my tracks this way. Although ordinarily I wouldn't have... I wouldn't have more than one individual piece of music in a project. It's just for like the final mix that I wanted to make sure it was consistent. There's so much guitar, we'll doubtless talk about that later. The synths are what I think make this really fun. So for example, Prologue. We have so many layers. So there's the guitar synth that I talked about earlier. Sounds like a Hammond organ. Those notes, if I can... So that's a guitar's open strings all tuned to B or F sharp and then played back as a keyboard. Which is super cool. Plucky Keys is a layered synth. It's 2 layers. Yeah, so there's the cinematic, this giant piano, which is giant. It's the noises of the keys being plucked, I assume by hand. And there's like an ambient layer from this instrument called kinetic metal, which is one of my favourite looking and sounding things in the world. So that has its own layer. Which is really fun. Oud, Middle Eastern folk instrument. And then lastly we have a synth pad, which is just nice and airy, basically. So then all together, the synths sound like this. And then all together, cool. Synths and then effects. We have a few different effects. There were layers upon layers which all got mixed together. So the ambient effects for Prologue is quite fun. I think there's like several different sample packs that I did license because I'm a good boy. And then like little donks as well for fun. And then what have we got here? 2 different layers. Nice drone. Ooh. That's fun. So what's this? Okay, more atmosphere. So like a variety of different sound effects for fun. And then of course we have a hang on, can I find, I think this is what I'm after. That's one of my favourite sounds. It's a auto harp. Let me find you a picture of an auto harp. Auto harp, which kind of looks like a harp, but it's controlled by buttons rather than individual strings being plucked. So you hold down one of these buttons and then it mutes the strings in order to voice the chord on the button that you're pressing, basically. So I own an auto harp, but it's rusty and it's out of tune and it's horrendous sounding. So this sample is me hitting all of the strings at once, and then it's reversed with a crap load of reverb, which is like horror sound design 101. And there's a few other layers. Same thing, I think. Yeah. And that has just lent so much like the whole sound of this. Tiny bit hidden. Whatever. Yeah, lots of different sound effects. We've got some nice sort of computery, glitchy type sounds, which are just fun. Which I think just sort of get hidden in here a bit. You can kind of hear them. We've also got the Mighty Pandapopolis, which is a battery instrument. Which all at one point were my friend Tom making some dumb noises. And I think actually there we go. I think I made a load of different versions and then didn't end up using them all, but I think I sent them all to Theo Sayers when he was doing the remix, and I think he probably used more of them than I did, which is kind of fun. There's also glitch controllers. So mash control and loop mash. Okay, so loop mash is a really cool instrument that comes built into Cubase, and what it does is you feed it a variety of samples, tell it that one of them is the master sample, and then it tries to take snippets of other phrases and match them with the original one. So that sounds like this. So basically I think I've got a simple drum pattern here, and then I've given it a variety of super I think those are the Pandapopolis sound effects. So it's kind of mangling percussion and vocal sound designs, and it sounds like this, which is nuts. And that's for the 7/8 track, and then like different parameters like stutters, reverses, tape dives, mutes, that kind of thing. They're all controlled by this MIDI track, and this sits really nicely inside of Fall of Pandapopolis. For example, which I think is super fun. And there's all the effects I want to talk about. What's this? Oh yeah, like almost acid house sounding arpeggios is one of my favourite things. Oh yeah, like a electro uplifter. What's this? Whatever. Effects. I like dumb noises, what can I say? Oh, and then at the very bottom here, which you might not be able to see under my face, is reference tracks. I had Sons of Apollo and then a couple Whitesnake tracks. As much as I like Whitesnake, those tracks were not good references. That particular album is OP. Yeah, let's maybe have a listen through, and I'll sort of pause things and like stop and start a little bit. Prologue. So we've got two lots of bass here. We've got a really subtle sub, and it's layered with this tempura sound, which is really satisfying. Nice choir layer at the top, quite subtle. Orchestra's sort of doing most of the work. A nice piano layer as well. You can hear the motif in the flutes and piccolo at the very top. The rhythm guitars were a pretty late addition to it. And what I quite like is it's not quite a non-functional harmony pattern, but it's, I don't know, can't remember what I did there, but there's this nice sort of lilting. You can't quite tell whether the first chord is the root or the second one. And then just a hefty lead guitar over the top, which gets a harmony that you can't really hear in a short moment. So that's what's going to be like peeking in your left ear a little bit. Quite subtle, but without it. I mean, it's fine without it, but it's just not as cool. Let's add it back in. It's just extra badass, really. Really cool descending piano thing at the very end there. for fun, and then it goes into the leitmotif. Yeah, that's track 1. Genius of Mechanicals starts off with this nice chunky orchestra. You don't really notice it, but there's this electro kick going throughout as well. And another kind of acidy synth. Yeah, nice chunky guitar riff. And again, another little harmony guitar. Kind of just out of hearing. Ah, glitch guitars. Another one of my favourite things. So that's a nice phrase panning between your left and right ears. I think it's got a bit of a tremolo on it as well for some reason. Can't remember what that did. So what that is a single guitar chord taken, shortened, and then just manually placed rhythmically. And because it's so short, it kind of feels like almost chip tuney, and it just gives like a nice little layer of rhythm guitar in between these inverted power chords, which are just fun. So all together we have this. Yeah. What else we got going on? So it's a nice sort of, it's not an empty chorus, but it's emptier than most of the rest of the album. Did I say chorus? I meant verse. Chorus is this bit, which kind of has more of a recognisable theme. There's that super hefty bass from earlier. Back into verse number 2. This has a little orchestral layer in it. Just sort of adding some nice sparkly interest at the very top. And following those chords as well. Which I think is really pretty and nice. Oh, I've stalled it. into the chorus again. And then we have this nice hefty breakdown. Yeah, you've heard this already. And then it goes back into another verse, which has the glitch guitars from the first one, chorus, and then it ends with a really nice harmony. Where's it gone? Between, I think all guitars are playing something different. Oh, there's that burping noise. Wait a second. What the hell? Don't know what I did. Oh, that's really fun. I think because it sounded like a digital burp. I didn't think to look here, and actually that's quite sloppy, isn't it? What I should have done was clamped it like that. But I didn't, and now there's a burping sound in my goddamn album. Good. I actually quite like it. Characterful. Mistakes are characterful. Splendid. Rise of Pandapopolis. I realise that if I go through at this rate, this is going to take ages, so I'm going to try and pick up the pace a little bit so it can all get back to our families. I don't know why I used that voice. So this is the first point where we have a Pandapopolis vocal. That makes sense. Oh yeah, and there's piano in this, in the effects layer for some reason. Which again, you can't really hear, but it sort of thickens out the bass guitar, which for the first repeat of the chorus is just playing one single held note, the same as this. Without it, it sounds a bit weak. Yeah, so just without it is a bit floppy. I mean, it's fine, but it's so much cooler with it. Kind of sounds more like the Tempura. What are these noises? Okay. Whatever. Cool. Oh, there's some cool choir noises. Let's go through it a little bit. So the points of interest are the chorus riff, which I sort of had in my head kind of like a heavy Blackstone Cherry type thing. So that is a glitchy sound effect cut from the guitar solo. I just wanted something a little more interesting in this second verse. So the first bit of the verse is kind of a bit bare without it. And then I think the orchestra comes in and kind of livens it up a bit, I think. There it is. Really simple verse. And then what we got? Oh yeah, we got the bridge, which is one of my favourite bits. I can't remember. I think it's playing like close clusters of notes, so it sounds again, it's like horror sound design 101, just like close clusters of notes sound really crazy, and then it releases to the tonic chord, I think. Play. There's a really nice violin or flute trill going up to that crazy horrendous. Oh, I love it. Interesting things. Aeroplane. Choir. We have some shouting. So choir and death metal sound designs are like the only vocals in the entire thing. So it's not strictly instrumental at all. So you've got the shouts and you've got the death metal. That's fun. And then a guitar solo, which I have not been able to play in like 5 years. Probably longer. There's also the rhythm guitars in this bit are really interesting, because we've got one thing that plays like the sort of low down open chords, and then the other guitar plays some quite high register stuff for a rhythm guitar. So the one in your right ear is obviously doing something more interesting than the one in the left ear. The left ear is bringing the chunk. Kind of sounds like a slide guitar riff, doesn't it? And under this hefty solo, which is crazy. You've heard it before. It's fine. The underneath is quite interesting, which doesn't work as a chat up line. Just the amount going on, especially in drums. So we've got the normal acoustic drum kit. It's got like a kind of pattern on the hi-hat. Electro kit. Ooh, remember this electro kit actually, because it comes up later in Fall of Pandapopolis. I hope. And then you've got big percussion as well. which is really fun. So the whole percussion is massive. A little bit of double pedal. And especially on the outro, the percussion ensemble really sells it. Is cool. What else we got? Effects. Oh yeah, there's the kind of ambient horror stuff that lead into the guitar solo. Yeah, it's really fun altogether. Lots of layers. I like layers in the winter. Yes. Ease a big and no. This was the one with like loads of glitchy sound effects. And like a sub bass. For some reason. I think just wanted to really, really punch. I think the bass is probably the most memorable part of this track. Really hefty. Quite a few guitar layers. So that's a mid-high range lead part that's again sort of been chopped up. I think I did the hip-hop thing of recording it ever so slightly out of time, or like doing the cut not quite on a beat, so it has a slight jank to it, which I really like. And then the rhythm guitars, same kind of thing. Probably a crap ton of effects in here as well, if we look. Oh yeah, that thing. Just kind of add a little bit of grain to the rhythm track. Yeah, there's lots there. Guitar solo is quite nice and discreet. There's a lot of, not a lot, but there's a few mistakes almost. I think I used a bit too much whammy, and like there's some notes that shouldn't be there, but actually I quite liked that sort of looseness to it. Yeah, I quite like that. And the this synth part is I think it's something like a gazang or a dulcimer, but it feels more like two parts played very closely than one part. I think. So there's like the main line. Da, 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 na, 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 na. No, and then bring in the second one. Which moves in a slightly different direction to the main one. yeah, that's everything of note, I think, there. We need a new plan, the nice ambient one. It's got the guitar synth and the oud kind of panned either side. And then the oud on the right hand side does some slightly more interesting things. Because otherwise it was just a bit repetitive. And I think the guitar is just like that sort of thematic pattern. So there's a hum in the choir, very low, and then the female parts are quite high up, I think. Oh, actually, so the first... How do I do this? So that's like a main theme, yeah? And then we have an abstraction from it. So the lower part is the same. The higher part, rather than D, A, F, E, is D, G, G sharp, G. And then that higher part stays the same. The lower part is F, E, F sharp. Just to jank with the main theme, I guess would be the technical term for that. Really big tempura in the bass. Tempura is like sitar, but lower. Realised you probably can't hear me. Sitar is like... tempura is like a sitar, but the bass version. And percussion as well. You may have noticed that some of the synths, especially if they're not all hidden behind my face, some of them have synth 2 not band, synth 1 band, synth 1 not band. When I was mixing this, I basically found that I wanted to differentiate between instruments that were in a band, so like acoustic drums, the folk instruments, guitars, the bass, orchestra, so forth. So they are in a band. Maybe not the orchestra, I can't remember. Not the orchestra, apparently. So they are a band, so they have like their own compression channel, so it sounds like they're performing in a little box together. They're a band. And every other instrument doesn't go through that same channel, so it sounds more kind of ambient. It's not as yeah, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain, but it made sense at the time. So the orchestra, sort of, my intention, I guess, is that the orchestra, some of the synths and the ambient effects feel like they're elsewhere, or that they're an addition to the band, they're happening around the band, maybe. I'm going to stick Raid the Nuke Lab on and go for another pee, because I keep drinking liquid in order to talk, and therefore need to pee more. I will be right back. just sort of realised how loud that was. So sorry if you've been deafened. I turned that down a tiny bit. Raid the Nuke Lab. So there's a tiny bit of orchestra in Raid the Nuke Lab, as you can see here. There's a bit in the intro. Sort of nice guttural horns. Choir as well? Yeah, choir. And then they come in... Oops. To sort of accentuate that staccato section. Which I think is a nice layer to have. And then what do they do at the end? Ooh, what does that do? Oh, that's like a riser into the next section. And that's kind of a harmony. Yeah. Yeah. So what interesting tidbits have we got here? Drums are doing their own thing. No percussion layers. Tasty guitar solo, in my opinion. So many bass layers. Yeah. Guitars, chunky. The main riff I really like. Phrygian, if you're wondering. I kind of want them to cut off almost digitally sounding. Just so it's like super tight. Other guitar riff I'm really fond of is the outro one. It's just fun to play. And then I think there's like a tritone thing over the top. It's on the glitch guitar layer because it's a stereo audio file. I can't remember if that's a reason. This thing, that's from like the earliest, a much earlier demo of Raid the Nuke Lab, which was not well received by Newgrounds, not at all. And I've sort of kept that sort of weaker sounding guitar, quite MIDI, quite high register, but then kind of glitched the crap out of it in this section. It's really fun, just for like a textural difference. So it's not got the chunk of these guitars. Oh yeah, you can still see the amps I used. That's fun. So I record the guitars in dry and then use this, and the reason I do that is so that the I know I'm using the same guitar settings throughout the album, more or less. So, and this is a good tip for having like big sounding guitars. If they're playing the same riff, pan them extremes left and right, and even if they're playing exactly the same thing, give them different amp settings, and it will just sound. Even if you're trying to achieve the same basic tone with each amp, it will sound bigger and wider if you use different amps. Fun tip for you there. Yeah, this synth is quite fun, especially this run. Oh, I love it. It sounds so weird by itself. It's like a Mega Man level up or something. I don't know. Yeah, so the lead synth kind of swaps between being very much the focal point at the very start, or like when the riff comes in, and then it becomes way more ambient. So like the actual riff as it starts. Oh yeah, that dumb pitch bend. Oh, I've crashed it again. Yeah, so that kind of section with the tremolo. It's there, but it kind of blends into the background a bit. Cool. What's this? Oh yeah, synths, acid arpeggios. It's weird, like you can't really hear it, but when you take it out it does feel kind of naked. Or maybe that's just me. Whatever. I need to stop saving it. There's no point in saving it. It's just the habit. I'm just Control-S-ing every 8 seconds. Oh yeah, we've got a big swell. Nice ambient sound. And then a big hit for when the riff comes in. Which gets a little bit hidden as well. What's here? That's fun. That's fun. And what's this? I think that's a similar one to the out of tune auto harp. And then what's at the end? Just a big hit. Bosh. Heck. We talked about the bass guitar in this earlier. Oh yeah, it's got favourite thing about the drum section is that the second hi-hat, the second snare, is not where it should be. Second snare? First snare, my bad. Bum, 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 ka, bum, ka. Rather than being bum, ka, bum, ka. It's just a bit jaunty and fun. Bass we've spoken about. Oh yeah, so we've got this clean guitar that Sai was playing. It's not clean at all. There's just so many effects on it. So that was all Sai in, I think, one take. And then we took a sample of that. Oh no, hang on, we had this chorus riff. And then we just chopped it up like we've done with a load of other samples. Incidentally, that thing that sounds like a Hammond organ, I think actually is a Hammond organ this time. It's not the thing that sounds like a Hammond organ, it actually is one. Or is it a synth? Nah, it is. I never noticed that break there. Ah, it doesn't matter because there's a massive explosion underneath it. What's this arpeggio? Okay, so it's that same patch, but it's put through like a really fast arpeggiator with a bit of a filter on it as well. I really like this section. It's got kind of a Mediterranean-y vibe to it. There's that plucky keyboard sound again. And then that pattern's really fun that fades in. I used to have this weird thing when writing music where I hated the idea of having patterns that only occurred once and weren't used again throughout the rest of a song, because I was like, well, what's the point? You may as well develop a theme, you may as well build on a pattern, evolve the music, especially if it's something that sounds too improvised. And then I realised, no, that's stupid. Because half the reason people listen to music is, well, half the people that will listen to a piece of music again is to hear things that only happen once in a song. If it happens every single verse or every single bar, it's not going to be special or interesting. So this was one of those things. Just like I don't know how many different instruments were playing it. 3 instruments and the percussion. This bit. Yeah, so the bass as well is doing it, and the drums is sort of approximating it on the kits. As like a section change. I really like stuff like that now. Possibly as a reaction to the me that doesn't like that. Wow, we are so over time. That's fine. We're like, we're over halfway through the album. That's fine. I'm just going to keep going. Yeah, and we've got the bass guitar I spoke about earlier, where so Sai's layer is still playing the actual bass line. The bass synth is still playing the same thing, but we've filtered out a lot of the bass frequencies. And then we return them at the very end. And you can sort of see on the spectrum, that's like the bulk of the bass sound in there. Everything else is just kind of, well, everything else is this. Once you nerf that bass signal, the rest of it sounds a bit crazy, but I quite like that. especially the gradual return. And it's not until like that last repeat that you realise just how chunky it was. Yeah, it's a nice synth patch there. Baroque and Metropolis. Oh yeah, this has got shouts, has it? Oh, it's not shouts. I'm going to leave that to your interpretation as to what you think that sounds like. What section is that? Oh yeah, the chromatic bit. Yeah, it's stuck in there. I really like the African percussion in this. Yeah, I think that's a fun layer, fun addition. So that guitar riff you hear at the top, not the riff, sorry, the harmony, is the leitmotif. Accompanied with this synth. So that is the acoustic guitar that's been repitched. The lead guitar, I have found that I'm not the shreddiest of players. I'm not one of the most technically impressive players, but I think what I am good at is finding nice, repeatable melodies or pedal patterns, or yeah, sort of nice or interesting sounding patterns. So I wrote this part specifically. I wasn't just noodling like a lot of the other parts were, and it's a nice lead guitar melody with only a little bit of showing off. And then there's this section which totally doesn't sound like Carry On My Wayward Son. And then the same kind of lead pattern on top. I'm calling that a chorus, I guess, or a hook, whatever. Then we go into the chunky bridge. Actually, the bridge section has like 3 bits to it. So there's this chromatic riffy bit that's a bit kind of Alice in Chains-y, maybe, to my ears. And that at the top is the organ guitar. This section is repeated like twice, but it's the only time this section happens in the entire song. So this is like the true bridge, I guess. which is nice and like a really pleasant. I guess that's the closest thing to a guitar solo you have, other than the melody. And then we go back to the chromatic dong 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 Alice in Chainsy bit, but it's got like these really crazy bends on top, which I personally love. Don't crash. Next section is like the third and final bit of the bridge, although it repeats. Yeah, let's listen to it. Which is really fun. This tapping bit is chuffing hard. And because it's hard, it is a tiny bit sloppy, I have to say, so I paired it with the organ doing the same thing. And then back into the chunky bit with the bends. I have to say the drums in this bit are crazy good. And then we repeat the tappy bit again with the addition of African percussion. So they were playing a tiny bit in that last bit, really subtly. And then which you can only really hear the cowbell, the sort of tinny high bits. I should mention that the chords for that main bit are not the same chords as this earlier bridge bit. I'll play the earlier bridge bit. They don't sound the same at all. I don't know why I thought they did. There's two cool things in there, actually. When I was talking earlier about having guitars playing exactly the same thing, these guitars play similar things. They're playing the same chords, but the voicings are different. So one of them's doing big open chords, the other one's just doing fifth power chords. Which just makes it sound big and hefty. And then at the end here, one of them's doing palm mute while the other one just holds it. And then for that bit, they're doing exactly the same thing. The chorus, do we call it chorus or verse? Can't remember, doesn't matter. They're playing, I was playing, it was me. I'm playing like a kind of metal sus2 chord. It's like a stacked fifth voicing. It's really fun. It looks like... Where's it gone? Ah, it doesn't have the full thing. Oh well, never mind. It's fun sounding. Lead guitars again, playing that verse melody from before. The one thing I really like about this, it's just a semitone quick hammer on, but like you bend it as well, so it's a bit crazy sounding. Sounds like a whammy trick, but it's not. It's very rock and roll. And ends with a nice crunchy bit. Fall of Pantopolis, we're nearly there. So I've spoken about the glitch layer, which is one of my favourite things. Oh yeah, the huge bend. Huge bend. So this, I think, is a layer of several guitars bending and the previous demo's layer, I think. And you can hear as well those bits of drums as well, because I couldn't get that sound effect independent of the drums. So they're in there as well, and that took ages to sync up with the actual drums. I think it still sounds a bit like there's a slapback delay on the main drums. Close enough. And then there's quite a bit of a drop off as well when that leaves, but I think it's quite nice because the chunkiness of the guitars takes over. And a nice bop bass. I said earlier that you should pay attention to the electro drums in Rise of Pantopolis. Don't know how obvious it is, but that's actually a pattern that was cut into 7/8 or 4/4, whatever, and is actually in here. No, you can't hear that at all, can you? Or is it this bit? Oh, interesting. It's in here somewhere. I think it's just like super low in here. Did I have to nerf it? Did I have to get rid of it? Oh, okay, so, right. This effects down here is the original pattern with loads of effects, and then there's bends up here as well. It's a sort of bendy hellscape. Yeah. I can't remember what I did for the voicings of the orchestra, but I like it. Ends with another one of those close voicings. Again, horror 101. Why do I keep hitting save for some reason? So that's kind of a thematic pattern. And it's on the Plucky Keys and the Oud as well. I think there's a nice brass horn section here. Yeah, so the rest of the orchestra cuts out. It's kind of a glitch solo, I guess. Cool. And then, oh yeah, choir. What does the choir do? Kind of pairing quite nicely with the orchestra there. Next interesting bit is the... Yeah, we kind of have a little bit of a drum solo. So I don't think it's in 7/8 yet. There it is. So when that steady bass line comes in, that's when we're in 4/4. And this bit is really hard to sort of decide when to drop bits in or out, because it's not a it's not a number of bars that kind of make sense structurally, and the reason being that it's could be written as a 4/4 phrasing in a 7/8 part, so it still subscribes to a sensible number of bars of 7/8 rather than 4/4, which is what it sounds like it's playing. It's this whole thing, man. I don't remember. I like this synth though. Kind of got a cool vocally formant filter. That synth is actually the last thing you hear as well at the end, which I think is fun. The keys and oud have this nice pattern that I think it sort of crescendos in. Yeah, so it's played very softly as it comes in. Final track. Holy heck, we did it, guys. My computer feels like it's not doing it. This is a massive file, in fairness, and it's running off a external hard drive. This is doing okay. I love how beefy the bass is for this. I've got a beefy bass. Buttery biscuit bass. I don't know what I'm saying. So it just sort of starts with some ambient effects. What do we got here? Another acidy synth. And what's that? Tom's floor tom? I like the guitar riff here. I think that's really fun. Tip for groove making: if you want to do a funky or otherwise groovy sounding guitar riff, ignore the one beat. So you'll notice for this, I think one, two, three. Not playing on the one. I had initially had as just like a open E palm mute or something, but just bailed on that. I like missing out the ones. I think that's got a really short note on the one. Yeah. That's fun. Orchestra kicks in. Again, glitch guitars. piano riff. Last little pan. Diddle-diddle-diddle-diddle. Oh yes, I think if you can hear the piano, I think it's being duplicated here. Oh no, it's similar. That drum fill. Crazy fun. There's electro on this as well. Why is that there? Oh, okay. So, right, the reason that's there is because I bring in an electro kit doing these kind of trap-esque hi-hat things in the bridge. And I didn't want to have that just come in, because it's paired with the original drum kit. So together they work really well. I didn't want to have that just come in randomly, so it's in the background kind of chunking out the chorus. Again, it sounds really chiptune-y by itself. So what bit did I get up to? Oh yeah. Chorus. Double pedal in the drums. Yeah, a little bit of double pedal. Second verse is fun. It feels like everything really drops out, but not entirely. And then we have that hocket section where the melody is shared. And so here it is. Just trying to find my notes to see if I can find what keys that's in, because it's certainly not in one key, which is dumb but also accidentally ingenious, if I do say so myself. I think I found it. Let's talk a little bit about the hocket. So the pattern, I don't think we hear in its entirety again. So the bass synth swaps between doing bass line and having those higher notes. And then I was going to have it on guitar, and I spent ages trying to learn it and play it right, but I ended up not using it. Keyboard has it, I think. So I think maybe it's just the keyboard and bass. Still cool. I like it. Oh, here it is. I found it. So so it swaps between E natural minor, which the track is in, and C melodic minor. And as far as I remember, those don't share an awful lot of notes, so it does sound a tiny bit janky, but it's kind of, it's that sort of janky where you could be convinced that it's fine. That's my hope anyway. back into that chorus. I'm just going to do this because I'm relaxing. I should hope so. I've been here 3 hours. 3.25 hours. God bless the handful of you that are still here. Also, because this is the last track, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat now, or if you just want to say nice things, that's also fine. Yeah. Or don't. It's fine. Ooh. Don't remember that one. So this is that same pattern from the Hocket, I think. Ooh, but rather than being this kind of nice lilting phrase, it's a much more staccato type thing. I just received a message saying nice things. Thank you for the nice things. And I think that's paired at the top with the orchestra. Oh yeah, and then there's that bit that comes in over the top, which I think is paired with the guitars. And it swaps to the ridiculous bass. It's nice. And then a nice dip back into the chorus. Yeah, that uplifter is crazy. I think it's just taken from like a traditional EDM sample pack, I think. So that's my album. Twice. In detail. Twice. Yeah, thanks for hanging out while I indulge. Basically. I hope that was interesting. I hope that you help yourself to the free download on Bandcamp, pluggity plug, or on Spotify or wherever you get your music. Don't feel like you have to send me any money, but if you wanna, that's grand. Or if you want to send me money in a way that results in you getting t-shirts and stuff, that's also cool. Yeah, I thought this might be fun, especially as I said, this is 8 years of on and off work. There's been parts of me that just wants to get it done and get it out there to the world, and there's other parts of me that's a bit like, no, let's take a little more care. So I have worked on this reasonably hard. I hope that's evident, not just in the pure volume of layers and stupid details. Yeah. This was a lot of fun. This went on significantly longer than I thought it would, but oops. I'm going to go order a big pile of Chinese food in celebration. If you haven't followed me on Twitch, please do consider following me on Twitch, the thing that you are watching now, if you're live. The reason being that I do music streams every Monday, afternoon, evening-ish. sometimes music theory stuff, sometimes guitar stuff, usually Cubase related. So if you're interested in music production, or you just want to hang out while I make dumb noises, that following me is the way to achieve that. I also post about when I stream on Twitter at LT Guitarist, all one word. Yeah, go buy the album, god damn it. And I will see you either Monday or before. Yeah, that's everything. I hope you did like the balloons. I made an effort with balloons. Oh, it's gone forever. What about the other one? Gone forever. Let's put that on there. That's not. It's broken. Yep, that's all I got. I'll see you later.